All right. Hello. Come on in. It is all things odd today. It is Thursday, and we have a brand new show. So let's get that going here. I'm going to have Dr. Galloway, as people are kind of coming in, just kind of talk a little bit about our YouTube channel here. And we'll ask that you guys follow us on YouTube. But here it is here.
Yeah, so she'll bring it up. All right, last week we still had 6 subscribers, so no one joined in the last week. But if you look on YouTube, they have like these little playlists of our videos, and I like the thumbnail image so you can kind of see what we were talking about. It's just a little bit more user friendly, I think. If you're not watching live and you want to, go back and look at some of those replays. So yeah, get on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe. You see that bright red subscribe in the top right. And then you'll get notifications about when we have a new episode and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and the thing that I love too about YouTube is that, a lot of people might not necessarily be on Facebook, right? And that's where we stream it live. We also do it live on my LinkedIn page too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually watch our show or catch replays if you want to, or share it even as well. And so we are just taking some time now, just kind of sharing it into some of these different groups that we are a part of to get not only some of our colleagues to join in the conversation, but to also share and maybe say hello from where they are. And then also, again, get any input as we are talking about some of our different topics. So, all right. So let me remove that. And we have our topic today. So our topic today, this kind of came up because we were sitting with a fellow audiologist, and she was from a manufacturer that had come in to do some training with us. And she was telling us about some things. And both Dr. Galloway and I were like, what? Oh, that's kind of cool. I had no idea, so we came up with this topic. Hopefully it'll kind of catch your eye as you are scrolling by, that it's things that your audiologist may not have told you or may not have mentioned, but mostly it's because we may not have known at the time, so that's one thing. The other thing too is maybe it's not that we didn't know, but maybe there's a lot of things that we tell you when either, we're talking about results or fitting hearing aids, and sometimes it's not always taken in either. So we thought we'd kind of cover a few things. I think we only have maybe 4 or 5 different things that we wanted to cover, but we thought it was kind of interesting because it was worth talking about. So with that, we're going to start off with really the first thing that came up was we were talking about rechargeable batteries. And, with rechargeable batteries, what we're talking about is a couple of things. Number one, this quick discharge. And so with rechargeable batteries, I mean, they've only been around, the lithium ion anyway, not the ones that, you can remove, but these are sealed shut, right? So these hearing aids, if you haven't used them for a while, like let's say for some, hopefully really bad reason, like you stuck them in a drawer for a couple of months, which we're hoping that you didn't. We would rather you come and tell us, if you're not using them, so we can get you to use these. But we found out that if you're not using your hearing aids and they're just kind of sitting around, they're actually having a quick discharge, which means that something's happening to the battery, right? And so even if you were to put it back into your charger and take it out, it might not last as long. And so there's like almost battery health that you have to consider. So we thought that was kind of interesting when we were told that about the quick discharge, because I had no idea. And again, just hoping that you would tell us so that, it wouldn't sit around. But go ahead, Dr. Galloway.
Yeah, and the reason we were kind of talking about it was with COVID, there was some hearing aid dispensers or audiologists that had some stock just sitting on the shelf. And we've done that before. You order a few sets of hearing aids because you anticipate, they're going to get sold. And then maybe that particular color you ordered has not been popular. I could totally see hearing aids sitting, in stock for 2 months. And then you go to fit them on the patient. And what our friend who's an audiologist was telling us is that once the battery life will be like permanently reduced if they've gone through that sort of quick discharge or like the deep sleep mode. And so if you had a pair in stock for 2 months, you fit them on a patient, they're coming back and saying like, oh, these batteries don't last very long. My thought would have been, oh, they're brand new. There's nothing wrong with the battery, but they could have sat around for a couple months. And it came up because we were talking about backup hearing aids. So if you have a patient who has an old set of hearing aids that are their backup hearing aids, but they're also rechargeable, well, your backups are going to sit there, for months on end without being used. And then all of a sudden you want to use them. So this kind of, we were both a little bit intrigued by this topic because we hadn't thought about it before.
Yeah. Yep. And then it goes to one of the other things that we talked about too was unplugging of your chargers. And so there's two different chargers, right? There's kind of a charger that comes with the device. Some manufacturers, their chargers actually hold a charge. But what our friend, our audiologist friend was saying is that if you have a regular charger, not the one that holds a charge, then make sure that when you unplug it, like to say move it or pack it or whatever you're doing, that you actually take the hearing aids out so that it doesn't zap the battery. It's different if you're hearing if that charger is holding a charge, because away from the wall, it's okay to have your hearing aids in there, right? But we want to make sure that for those of you who have lithium ion batteries and you have a charger that does not hold a charge, and you will know, right, to make sure that you take your hearing aids out of that charger before you unplug it from the wall, because that was kind of interesting too. Again, something that I don't necessarily wouldn't have necessarily said at a fitting or maybe have remembered. And so again, these are some of the things that maybe your audiologist didn't tell you because they didn't know, or maybe it wasn't top of mind or whatever it is. And so we thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Yes. And you're not at risk of unplugging it if it holds a charge. So the way that you're going to find that out is unplug it from the wall. And if the charger still has green lights on it somewhere, not the hearing aids, but the actual charger, then that means that it's holding power. I know on a couple of the chargers on the back of them, there's actually some little LED lights that indicate how charged the case is. So those would be things to look for to try to figure out if your case holds charge, because if it doesn't, and then, I'm just thinking like leaving a hotel or something, maybe it's the morning, you're going to put them on, you just unplug it from the wall with the hearing aids and they're not thinking about it. But that's how you can kind of tell the difference between cases. I know like one manufacturer in particular, their standard case does not come with something that holds charge, but they have another one that holds charge. So it's not like brand specific that you would have to just kind of do an experiment or ask us for your exact hearing aid model. We could tell you if your charger is one that's holding charge or not.
Yeah, those are great points. The other thing too about rechargeable batteries is we usually tell people, if your hearing aids come with rechargeable batteries and they're good for like 3 years, I usually tell people, right before the third that 3-year warranty is up, let's send your hearing aids in and have them replace the battery, because it's almost like you get a fresh, rechargeable battery then, right? Because rechargeable batteries, they start to go out where they don't last as long, anywhere between 3 to 5 years. And so typically I tell people right before that warranty is up, let's send those hearing aids in. And so that might be something that you ask your audiologist about as well.
Yeah. Or if you think, oh, hey, I did that. I had my hearing aids in the drawer for 3 months and now they don't hold charge very long. We can send them in for you, or some manufacturers, we can even order the batteries to come to our office and replace them. I also learned something from our friend yesterday that unless, as an audiologist, if you're sending it in just for a clean and check or just, hey, warranty is getting ready to go out, you really need to check the box that says battery issue. Because otherwise, for sustainability reasons, they're not just automatically replacing the lithium ion cell of each aid that comes in. So that's something that I probably was not specifying on the forms when I was sending it in for repairs. So I think that's kind of good for us to know too.
Yeah. And since we're at it, I do want to give credit to our friend, because we're just like, oh, our friend. Okay, let's just say her name. It was Sonny Harris from Signia Hearing, just to give her credit, because it was great. We had a great time learning from her. But then also, every time we have some great audiologists and some other colleagues come in, we learn from them. And so this totally spawned our idea for the show today. Like, hey, let's make sure that people know things that we may have forgotten to tell them, or maybe we learned and we didn't tell them yet, right? And so this is why we labeled this, things maybe your audiologist didn't tell you, because we thought it was really kind of cool. So thank you, Sonny, for inspiring this show topic, because we came up with some other things as well that as we were kind of putting our heads together. So that started the the topic, which was all about rechargeable batteries and some things
Mhm.
that we wanted to make sure that we put out there into the universe so that patients can see it. Audiologists that are listening can say, oh yeah, let me remind myself to tell that patient that,
Mhm.
because things, we don't always remember to tell everything to everybody all the time. So that's rechargeable batteries. Okay. Then as we were putting our heads together, we're like, well, what other things are we not like telling patients? Like,
Yeah.
we need to come up with some other things too. So another thing that we wanted to tell people, talk about, and Dr. Galloway came up with this, and I thought it was brilliant too, is microphone covers. Okay, so
Mhm.
I'm going to let her talk about it as
Yep.
well. But there are times where people walk in the door, right, and they've done everything that you tell them to do, as far as like they might say, my hearing aids aren't working very well, and they're like, oh, did you clean your dome? Did you take it off? Did you clean that wax guard? And that's always our go-to. But sometimes
Mhm.
we forget that there are microphone covers to look
Yeah.
into. So I'm going to let Dr. Galloway talk about that one.
Yeah, and it's different by manufacturer, but we mostly work with Cochlear America's brand, Cochlear implants. On all of their processors, you can replace the microphone covers. And we go over it when you first get your implant. And I was actually looking to see if I had one in the drawer that I could show, but I don't think that I do. So we tell you about it at your cochlear implant fitting and say, hey, every 3 to 6 months, you need to be changing these out. People forget because they use it every day and it works fine and they didn't realize. But all that sweat, moisture, dust, dirt. We have a patient who works on HVAC systems. So he's, up in ductwork and around all this drywall dust and stuff like that. And when you think about a microphone cover, think about talking on a microphone and that little foam cover that comes off. If you were standing outside with a microphone for days on end, think about how much dirt and stuff would get into that little cover. And it's the same thing. They're just, made to fit onto the hearing aid. And especially with older hearing aids, let's say you've been wearing them for 5 years. If those microphone covers have never been replaced in 5 years, it's probably going to make a really big difference. And I sort of discovered that a few years ago when we had patients coming in at this point where, oh, they're just not really helping me, and trying to decide what we're going to do. And I listen to older hearing aids and figured out, oh, some of these, if we just change the microphone cover, we get a pretty good improvement. So it's not specific by company. I know that on a lot of Starkey products, older Starkey products, you can replace the microphone covers. I know a lot of older Widex products, you can replace the microphone covers. And that's something that we can order just as a part and have them send to us, replace it, and it can make a big difference. But not all companies have mic covers that you can replace yourselves. I know all of the cochlear processors do, both the N7, the one that sits behind the ear with the magnet, or the Kanso, just the single unit processor. And on theirs, the actual faceplate kind of pops off, and then you just replace the whole plate. It's not like just the microphone cover. But if you have a hearing aid and you're wondering, like, oh, I don't think I've ever done that, or they've never talked about that, we might not be able to do it. It might be a hearing aid that does not have a replaceable microphone cover. But if it does, especially if you're somebody that works in dirty, dusty, environment, spends a lot of time outside, that would be something to check for sure. It's kind of an unassuming culprit of reduced sound. So that's definitely something that we can check for you. If you do have Cochlear America's brand cochlear implant processors, you're supposed to be doing that every 3 to 6 months. We can do it in the office for you, but you can also call Cochlear. They can send you the parts, and it's really easy to do yourself. But that's just kind of something to keep up on so that that those microphones are getting good access to sound.
Yeah.
And we saw it pretty significantly with the patient we had recently who works on HVAC systems. So, we need to put a little note in his chart that we're going to change those out every 6 months or whatever, just because he's in those environments much more than other people.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So that's one thing to remember. Again, as you're joining us, we are talking about things that your audiologist may not have mentioned, or they did and you forgot, or we didn't know at the time. So, so we thought that would be kind of interesting. Okay. The next thing we thought about was talking about streaming to television. We talk about streaming to telephones all the time because everybody's always got their phone, right? But streaming to television, there's a few things we wanted to talk about here. Initially, years back, there was this amazing app, and we think that there are people that are still using this, but because many hearing aids are now able to have an extra device that connects to their television,
Mhm.
it's not as talked about as much, right? But there was an app called Tunity TV, and it was allowing people to actually kind of take their phone, hold their phone in front of a station, right? And it would scan it, and it would kind of, uh, I guess it would go up to the cloud, satellite dish,
I
satellite
yeah,
dish,
I'm not sure
cloud.
how it does it, but
Yeah.
you actually take a picture of your TV on the
Hmm.
phone and it figures out which network you're watching. I'm almost wondering if it just looks in the lower right corner and is like, "Oh, it's CNN," or
Oh,
whatever, because it has to be live television, and
yeah,
then it'll just start streaming it through your hearing aids. So
yeah.
the places I see it really being a benefit would be like if you're trying to watch a game at a sports bar and they've got 8
Hmm.
different TVs on and you're just trying to watch this one, you could connect to it so you can just hear that game.
Yep.
Um,
And then the distance, right? So then you'd get it right at the level of your ears versus, at a sports bar, there's going to be tons of noise too.
right. Or like I'm thinking an airport, any
Mhm.
public place where like the news is on or something and you
Yep.
wanted to hear it better. Or if the TV is even on silent and in like a
Mhm.
waiting room, you can still
Yes.
do it there and then actually get the sound just to yourself,
Yep.
where
Yep.
other people aren't hearing it. So although TV streamers now are a little bit more commonplace and that people will have those in their living room, it connects to your TV and then you wirelessly sync up to it by the app and it will just stream the television audio through your ears. It's great.
Yep.
But you have to have the device and it has to be plugged into your TV. And so if it wasn't your home TV or it wasn't, maybe you have a TV in the bedroom that you only watch at night or something, that
Hmm.
would be something that you could do is download that Tunity app and then stream, anything that's live. If it's pre-recorded on demand, I don't think you can do it, but like sports games, news, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you pointed it out because I would assume exactly like what you said. If you're at home, you would have like an accessory, possibly, right?
Mhm.
That would connect your hearing aids to your own personal TV. But where Tunity TV, the app would come out, would be in these public areas where you're not
Mhm.
going to carry around your thing and ask somebody, like the bartender, "Hey, will you climb up there and like plug my plug my
Plug
accessory in?"
in your headphones.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And so this would definitely be something that you would be able to do in a public area, like what Dr. Galloway said,
Mhm.
like a sports bar or airport, right? Or like perfect a waiting room that might have something going on as well. Now, the
Mhm.
one thing that I noticed when we were having patients do Tunity TV, when Bluetooth technology first came out, where we could stream with hearing aids, was that if you're using your own personal TV and you're literally sitting right there, the hard thing is, and you have the, uh, and you're sitting pretty close where you can kind of see it. The hard thing is because it kind of goes up and then it comes back like up to the cloud and it comes back down
Oh.
to your device. There's a slight delay. So like
Mhm.
if you're watching dialogue or whatever, news is typically okay unless the newscaster is what is speaking. But if you're watching some sort of dialogue drama, slight delay can kind of throw it off just a little bit because you're that close watching
Yeah.
that live TV. So that's the one thing that I noticed. When you're watching it in the airport, sports bar, it's a little bit easier
Mhm.
because you don't have to worry about the delay. You're just literally tuning in and kind of watching it at the same time, right?
Mhm.
And it's further away, so it's not as noticeable.
Yep.
But when you're that close, that's what we've noticed from people. Yeah. All right. And that being said, when we talked about the accessories, know that most hearing aids now have the ability to have an
Mhm.
accessory that you can plug into your television and be able to stream directly to your devices in your own personal TV and at home. So
Yep.
ask your audiologist about that as well, because there are devices that are going to help you hear the television much better. Okay.
And I find that where it's really valuable for patients is when they're not watching TV alone, because maybe their husband or their wife wants it at a higher, lower volume. So that way everybody's happy and nobody's sitting there uncomfortable, like irritated that it's turned up too loud, but you can turn it up as loud as you want in your own ears. And so that way it kind of, smooths over the the environment and kind of lets everybody listen. I've also had patients say, well, my grandkids, I don't want to turn it up as loud as I need it because otherwise that'll damage their hearing and then I don't know what's going on in their show. So that's a perfect solution of being able to kind of split it so they can listen however loud they want. And then you have your own personal volume control that you can max out if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then the last thing that we've had is we don't talk about IP ratings very much. And I thought this was
Yes.
really interesting. And Dr. Galloway found some really interesting facts as well.
Mhm.
But let's explain a little bit more about what an IP rating is and why it's so important to
Yes.
hearing aid users.
So an IP rating will come with any electronic, and I've heard about IP ratings for a really long time. But I went to this hearing aid training. I can't remember which manufacturer it was, but they told me exactly how they do it, and I thought it was so interesting. So they put the hearing aid in a chamber and they blow dust, dirt, water, air, all kinds of stuff just at it, and then take it out and see how well it resisted that. So it's a 2-digit number. So like a lot of our hearing aids right now are IP68 rated. So the first digit is actually looking for dirt, debris, and dust particles, like how well it's resisting those elements. And that number is going to be between 1 and 7. So the higher the number is, the more it kept out. The second, so those are physical particles, whereas the second is actually how well it resists water. And so that second number is 1 through 9. 9 would mean that it's not damaged after being submerged 1 meter in 1 meter of water for a prolonged time period. Now, as far as I know, there is no hearing aid that has that rating. There was one waterproof hearing aid that was introduced years ago, and then they discontinued it. It was made for kids. I don't know why that was. I'm guessing that IP rating that high IP rating probably had something to do with the power drain. If you wanted to ask me, just because that's how hearing aids work, and so they need power either from the zinc air battery, which would need air to get in it, or lithium ion. I don't know how those operate with absolutely no air or anything like that. But there was one rated that is no longer available. So now most of our hearing aids are IP68. I didn't see anything specific about IP68, but IP67 would mean that it can be submerged for up to 30 minutes and in water. And it did specify that it's clean water. Then they're not looking at any other factors like hearing aid motion. Like if you dropped it in water, they're not looking at like what happens when you drop the hearing aid. So it's just looking at clean water getting in the hearing aid. We went to the American Academy of Audiology conference years ago, and they had this fish tank with Barbies sitting at the bottom of it. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
And the Barbies were wearing hearing aids, and they were like trying to see how long it would take to kill the hearing aid. And it was kind of funny because yeah, we're not submerging our hearing aids like that on purpose, but it happens. So if you dropped your hearing aid in a fish tank and then immediately retrieved it, we would think that it would still be functioning as long as you have this IP68 rating. However, if you let it sit there for 30 minutes, that might be a different scenario. But these IP ratings are for any electronic. So any electronic you buy, you can look up the IP rating, and then you kind of know how safe it is against water, dust, debris, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So most hearing aids now, especially rechargeable, are IP68. So yes, they can get wet, but you don't want it to be submerged for a long period of time. We tell parents that if they're going to do bath time with kiddos, leave the hearing aids on for bath time, and then just take them off when you're going to, pour water over their head or whatever, because you still want them to have access to sound. It's a bonding experience. So that goes to show they can get wet. They're splash proof, but they're not, completely waterproof. So if it's in there for a long time, it may be done. But most hearing aids have some sort of a warranty, a loss and damage replacement where you can pay a fee, a smaller fee than what a hearing aid would cost, and they'll replace it for you. So don't throw it away or something like that. Bring it to us. We can look at it and see what we can do. But it's just like any other electronic where if it sits at the bottom of a fish tank for too long, it's probably going to be done.
Yeah. Well, and I know that people have used like different rice things to try to get the moisture out. Don't forget, we have Redux. If you missed our Redux episode, again, go to YouTube and find the replay. But we also have Redux that will draw moisture out. And so find out if your audiologist there in town has something like that they can draw the moisture out to help you out as well. And then you had found something out I wanted you to talk about real quickly too, about I think it was just the Oticon More device, rechargeable versus non-rechargeable.
Oh, yeah. I have been telling patients for years that A rechargeable hearing aid is going to be more water resilient than a non-rechargeable hearing aid, because a non-rechargeable hearing aid has a battery door where the battery actually opens and gets in there. And you can actually get in there and, put dirt or moisture or whatever. But Oticon More, they're both rated IP68 for the Oticon More one rechargeable versus non-rechargeable. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know how they've done that. The gasketing and stuff they put in the casing must just be really good. Also, maybe it's not better enough to get an IP69 rating, but it is technically a little bit more water resilient, I would think. But they do have the same rating. So it's probably splitting hairs. But, in general, when I see a patient come in with hearing aids that are rechargeable, they're not as slicked down with moisture as maybe one that is non-rechargeable. Because when you open that battery door, a lot of times you can see a layer of oil on the top of the battery that's from the patient. And so that's certainly not the case with, rechargeable, because they can't open that door. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, IP68 is about the highest rating you're going to get for a hearing aid right now. And so they're very water resilient, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So if you're just joining us, or if you're catching just kind of the end of our show here, don't forget to kind of go back and watch the replay. Go to YouTube, watch the replay there, because I thought that there were some really interesting things that we may not have mentioned to you the first time around. So if we haven't, we're really sorry, but hopefully the show helped out as we either learn about different things or remember, oh, I forgot to tell you this,
Yes.
as patients. But yeah, share it out if it's something that is helpful for you or for a loved one, as well as if you are an audiologist tuning in, maybe you've come up with some other things that you're like, oh, shoot, I forgot to say that, or I forgot to mention that to my patient, because I think that it's super helpful. So with that, we are going to end the show, and we will be back next week with a whole new episode, and we will see you then. All right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.